What's up, guys? Welcome to the second take. I'm Zach, and Jonah's not going to be joining us this week. It's just going to be me, so we're going to keep this one a little bit shorter than usual, probably around the 20-minute mark. I'm just going to give you a little rundown of NBA free agency. As we talked about last week, you had like a couple days to relax and not think about the NBA, and that all ended July 1st when free agents were allowed to start talking to other teams. So on July 1st, NBA free agency kicked off with Hassan Whiteside announcing he would sign with the Miami Heat again, 4 years, $98 million. Before that, just like everyone thought, Timothy Mozgov was the first free agent off the board. Obviously, I mean he clearly has the most talent, and obviously would go to the best place, which would be LA. So yep, LA made the first big splash with $64 million to Timothy Mozgov, giving him $16 million a year for a player that scored only 15 points in the entire 2016 postseason, which is one that his team won the title on. So interesting move, but I do think he's a good player, and that's basically a bargain, believe it or not, in today's free agency. But anyways, back to the bigger names. You have Whiteside going back to Miami. You had Dwight Howard making a splash going to Atlanta. He was probably the first big fish to fall. I know he's been not what he would like to be recently, but I think Atlanta's a good spot for him. Obviously, they just lost Al Horford, who signed with the Celtics, so have some room at center there now. I think he fits well with Horford. There's a little inside-out game that can work there, so I like that a lot. I like what Atlanta's been doing a little bit. They kind of keep everybody. They re-sign a lot of their players usually, and then now obviously adding Dwight Howard. So basically you're trading centers, Dwight Howard for Al Horford. You're keeping Paul Millsap. They re-signed Bazemore, traded Jeff Teague, and so Dennis Schroeder will be their starting point guard now. I think they're still a solid 4 or 5 seed in the East, so that's a good spot. Really love what the Pacers are doing. Traded George Hill to Utah, but it was a 3-team deal, so Atlanta was the third team. Atlanta ends up sending Jeff Teague to the Pacers. I like that a lot. They signed Al Jefferson. They let Jan Mahimi go, who ended up on the Wizards, but I think they definitely improved their team a lot. I mean, they could run out a lineup of Miles Turner, Paul George, Al Jefferson, Jeff Teague, and pretty much whoever else, maybe Monte Ellis. So I think that's a solid group right there. Let's start at the top, though. So the biggest fish that everyone was worrying about is Kevin Durant. And on July 4th, Kevin Durant broke the hearts of some, and probably many actually, and decided to go to the Golden State Warriors. So KD took a 2-year deal for $56 million. He has an opt-out after the first year, so essentially it's going to be a 1-year deal. He'll opt out and maybe either re-sign with the Warriors long-term or look elsewhere again. But the reason he has just that 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first is because the cap is going to go up $20 million next year, which will give KD the chance to sign a huge deal. So I think that we're going to see, with this cap increase, players like LeBron James, who will be a free agent next year after opting in this year, and Kevin Durant, who will obviously opt out next year to sign a bigger deal. I think you're going to see these two players easily sign a $200 million contract. So this year our biggest contract was Mike Conley. He signed 5 years, $153 million, I believe. So he's making $30 million a year pretty much. That's the biggest in NBA history. He'd be the highest paid NFL player. So Mike Conley is a great basketball player, but he never made an All-Star game. Memphis has never really done much in the postseason, and obviously LeBron James and Kevin Durant are 1,000 times better than Mike Conley, no disrespect, but those are the two best players in the universe. So they'll easily command $200 million with this cap increase. It's going to be a little bit ridiculous, but it's deserved for those two guys. So Kevin Durant leaves OKC, leaves Russell Westbrook behind to make a super team with the Golden State Warriors. Now, a lot of people are pretty angry about that. I really don't care if you're angry about that. I don't see any reason you should be angry about that. The guy's an athlete. He's worked his butt off for so many years, probably since high school basketball, just every single day, playing and playing and playing, getting better, working out. Now he's in the NBA, had to leave his family to go on road trips and all this other stuff that takes him away from the life of a normal human being. Now, obviously, he gets the perk of being an athlete and making stupid money, like $25 million a year, but he has to sacrifice a lot. Blood, the sweat, the tears, the leaving the family, like I just mentioned. There's so many things that go into being an athlete and so many sacrifices that have to be made, but you do get that spotlight, you get that glory, sometimes you get that failure, and you get the money. So if you're mad that he left OKC to chase money, you're wrong, because he could have gotten more money in OKC, could have gotten more money in Boston, probably could have gotten more money in places that were not named Golden State, so that's not an option. But if he stayed in OKC, I could have seen people that were mad that he stayed for more money. So you can't win in that situation. You either take a lot more money or take a lot less money, and you're wrong either way, apparently by today's standards. And the other option is that he wanted to win, and win now. And he went to the best case scenario to do that. So obviously you're either mad that the Warriors are so much better than your favorite team, or you're mad that maybe you think the NBA won't be as much fun to watch because this one team will be so outstanding, or you're mad that you think he's taking the easy way out, but you're wrong in all cases. So it's not the easy way out, because one, there's going to be more pressure on that team than ever on any team before. He knows what he's getting into, and the reason he's going there is to win a ring. And like I just mentioned, there's all those sacrifices that he has made, so he deserves to win a ring. And he's been damn close before, so you can't fault him for that. He's getting into his veteran years, so he doesn't have terribly long to go. Still, obviously, he has probably 8 good years left. Probably 4 great years and maybe 8 good years. So he has a chance. He can always come back to OKC, kind of like a LeBron thing. But also, the biggest problem I have is that people think it'll make the NBA less fun to watch. That's probably the opposite of what I think is true. The NBA, I think now, will be more fun than ever to watch. If you've ever played a sport, you know that you always are looking to play that best team. When you play the best team, you have to rise up to that occasion, bring your level up, compete more, compete harder, play better, play stronger, play faster, play smarter. Everything about your game has to go to a new level. So now think about an NBA season. You have 82 games. 82 times the Warriors are going to step on the court. They're going to get the best possible shot of every single team they play all 82 nights. That's just the way athletes work. You think when Russell Westbrook and the Thunder go into Golden State, he's not going to play harder than he's ever played in his life? He's going to try to kill the Warriors. You think when LeBron James, I'm going to guess they're going to play each other on Christmas Day, Cavs and Warriors, you think LeBron James is going to try to make a statement saying that, yeah, you might have gotten KD, but we're still the kings here. We still run the town. We still have the ring, blah, blah, blah. You think that Dwayne Wade, if he goes back to Miami, isn't going to have something to say? I mean, the Spurs are still out there. The Spurs signed Pau Gasol. They still have Marcus Aldridge. They still have Kawhi Leonard. There's teams that will never give in to the Golden State Warriors. So the better one team gets, the higher the competition, because those other 30 or 29 NBA teams are going to raise their level to try to beat that Warriors team one time. So I was talking to Jonah, and he was saying how he thinks this isn't fair, and kind of like why didn't Chris Paul, like how Chris Paul got the trade from what was the New Orleans Hornets to the Los Angeles Lakers when they tried to move Chris Paul was denied for being unfair. Why wouldn't that happen in this case scenario? Well, it's free agency, so that can't happen. It's kind of like an employee searching for work. You can't tell him where he can or can't go. But I'm so happy he went to the Warriors. I think they're going to be a great, great, great basketball team. I don't think they're going to win 73 games. I don't think they're going to win 74 games. I think they'll maybe win 66, 67. We saw with Miami, they started out slow when LeBron went there. When LeBron went back to the Cavs, they started out slow. So the teams that we've seen as super teams, probably the Celtics Big Three was really the first team that we thought of in this, of us millennials, I guess. They were probably the first team that was really had a Big Three, or was really expected to be absolutely great, and they even struggled. And like I just said, Miami struggled. So I don't think this team's going to be flawless. They're going to be really, 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 really good, but I don't think they're going to be flawless. I'll talk a couple more minutes about the Warriors team, and then we'll go to some more free agents. But the reason I'm so excited about this Warriors team is because of how much it changes the team dynamic. So we saw in the NBA Finals when the Cavs really got to Curry and they got to Klay Thompson and didn't allow them to get space, didn't allow them to get their jumpers that they wanted to, never really caught a rhythm. So now you add KD to that mix. Let's say Steph and Klay are not hot, or maybe Steph is making a couple of Klay's ice cold, like we've seen a couple times, probably a handful of times in the season. Now they have Kevin Durant to go to. He's the best scorer in the NBA, best pure scorer by far. So Curry can't come off screens because he's getting held, or because someone's being physical. Like let's say Russell Westbrook's physical guarding Steph Curry. He can't get open like we saw against the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. And let's say that Klay hasn't really been making a lot of shots. So who are you going to go to? Well, in the past they had to go to Draymond Green to try to initiate the offense, get into something, maybe create for himself, create for Steph, create for Klay. Had to use the passing of the team and really move the ball around, hope that there was a lapse in the defense. Well, now you don't really need to do that, although they still will do that. Now you have Kevin Durant, who can make a shot over anyone, is a great three-point shooter, gets to the free throw line, makes every free throw shot he takes, can get to the rim, a great defender, he's long, he's athletic, he checks every box, and in my opinion, it's actually robbery how they got him, because so they signed Kevin Durant, which means they had to let go of Harrison Barnes, who I think is one of the worst players in the United States of America. So Harrison Barnes signs a max deal, which is just ridiculous to me, but signs a max deal to go to the Dallas Mavericks, which is, I mean, you're going to trade Kevin Durant for Harrison Barnes any day. They also gave up Andrew Bogut, who also was traded to the Dallas Mavericks because they needed to create cap space for Kevin Durant, and you lose Festus Ezeli. So that's widely regarded as the three players that were the worst players on the team. And you just moved all three of them for Kevin Durant, and you also gained 2 second-round draft picks. So, I mean, if you look at that as like a trade, you get the second best player in the world, 2 draft picks, and then you give up your 3 worst players. I mean, it's basically like it's not fair. Like, that's just not right. So this team now has the best shooter in the universe ever in the history of the NBA, the smoothest shooter in the history of the game in Klay Thompson. Obviously, like I just said, Steph Curry, the best shooter ever, also a 2-time MVP. Kevin Durant won an MVP 3 years ago. So, I mean, you have 4 all-NBA players that are going to be starting, with Draymond Green also thrown in there. And then, if you think of their death lineup that they went to last year when they had Draymond and Iggy and Harrison Barnes and Curry and Thompson, now you take out Barnes and put in Durant, so now that lineup is bigger, first of all, better defensively, and 1,000 times better on the offensive end. You're taking 2 of the most prolific and most fun to watch scorers of the NBA, in Curry and Kevin Durant, and you're taking one of the best shooters in the NBA in Klay Thompson, and you're giving them Draymond Green, who's a point guard forward who can initiate for those 3. I mean, it's just like it's gonna be like watching. It's basically like an all-star team every single night, which is just gonna be awesome to watch. And if you're sour about the deals, I really hope that you can get past it, because if you don't watch, you're gonna be missing something pretty special. I think this might be probably the best team that you could watch in the history of. This is like a Showtime Lakers kind of deal, but this team is probably better because they're such great scorers. So I'll wrap that up with the Warriors. Now I'm just going to talk about a few other moves. So like I said, Dwight Howard went to Atlanta. I'm just going to go through the bigger names here. D-Wade is still currently looking for a deal. He was offered originally he was offered $10 million a year by Miami, which is like a punch right in the face, which really hurts me, because that Dwayne Wade has done everything for that franchise. He's easily been the best player in the history of that franchise, and you're going to offer him less than pretty much anyone in the NBA would have gotten. That's just disrespectful, which allowed him to look other places like Chicago, where he's from, like the Knicks, where I'm sure he would like to go. Milwaukee's picked up steam. Denver has had chances. So I don't like that they treated D-Wade that way. But once they learned they were not going to get Durant, they offered D-Wade 2 years, $40 million, so $20 million a year. I've heard that he wants 3 years, and he would also like to get it closer to $25 million a year. I think that he's going to have to probably accept less than that. I don't think any team will want to give him 3 years because of his injury history and all that. But I really hope he does go back to Miami. I can't imagine him in a different jersey. Well, I'd love to see him play 3 or 4 more years and finish out his career in Miami. So hopefully they can get that done. But then we also had a couple max deal guys. Chandler Parsons got a max from the Memphis Grizzlies, 4 years, $100 million. I really don't know what I think about that. I think he's a great player, but with his injury history and with, just I guess the market calls for that, but I can't really picture Chandler Parsons being a max player. But he's in Memphis. As I said, Al Jefferson is in Indiana. Joakim Noah joined Derrick Rose to go to the Knicks, with now pairing with Melo and Porzingis. That team is probably a playoff team, so good for New York. Got a little bit better. Maybe people will start trusting Phil Jackson a little bit more. Roy Hibbert is on a 1-year deal. I think he'll be out of the NBA after this upcoming year. Everyone knows how bad he's been. Let's see here. Nick Batum signed a $120 million contract to return to Charlotte, and the entirety of that contract is guaranteed, which is kind of insane. We were just going nuts over Andrew Luck getting $87 million to go back to the Colts. $87 million was guaranteed. His deal is like 130 something, but $87 million was guaranteed, and now Nick Batum gets 120 million guaranteed, and he's probably maybe a top 50 NBA player at best. So I wonder what those people have to say about that. But he's a good player. He helped Charlotte a lot. So like I said, the market calls for it. Go ahead and give it to him. Luol Deng went to the Lakers, which was interesting. $72 million over 4 years, and he's steadily declined every single year since pretty much probably 5 years ago. He's gone downhill. He was okay in the playoffs for Miami, but this season he was pretty bad. DeMar DeRozan shows you how much the Lakers don't have a chance getting good big name free agents anymore, because DeRozan's from LA. It's been known that he's always wanted to go back and play in LA, and he wouldn't even meet with the Lakers. He flat out just said, I'm staying in Toronto, don't want to go to LA, don't want to play for LA, and signed a check, $139 million. So that makes him, in the next 5 years, earn more money than LeBron James has earned in his first 13 seasons. So that just shows you how much the cap has gone up. But like I said, if you can get it, go get it. Like this, Mike Conley going back to the Grizzlies. Rondo has signed with the Bulls. So that's an interesting move. The Bulls have now lost Derrick Rose, so they lost their starting point guard, and acquired 3 new point guards. And that's about it. Lost their center, but really haven't made any other moves whatsoever. So they now have Rondo, Jerry and Grant, and Jose Calderon vying for their point guard spot. Don't really have a true center, I guess. Lost Gasol, lost Joakim Noah, still have Taj Gibson. You have Doug McBuckets, Jimmy Butler. So there's still some players, but I don't think they're going to be half as good as they could be. I wouldn't be surprised to see them miss the playoffs again, or I could also see them making like a 7 or 8 seed, but nothing crazy. Dirk has gone back to the Dallas Mavericks for $20 million a year. Pau Gasol has signed a contract with I think it's also for $20 million a year, with the San Antonio Spurs. That was an interesting one. I was thinking Portland was in the running for him. Spurs had to wait and see if KD was coming, but once KD said no, Pau was very intent on going to the Spurs. So just another big name power forward going to San Antonio. They had Tim Duncan retire on them yesterday, and David West is a free agent. So now it'll just be the LaMarcus Aldridge Pau Gasol duo to go along, obviously, with Tony Parker and Kawhi Leonard, which I think is a pretty solid team. Probably still a 2 or 3 seed in the West. No problems with that. Ryan Anderson went to the Rockets for a lot of money. That doesn't need to be talked about. It just makes me mad. Bradley Beal back to the Wizards for a lot. Jamal Crawford back to the Clippers. J.R. Smith is trying to work out a deal with Cleveland. So, really the first couple days was mainly people going back, like Andre Drummond returned, and then all the names I just mentioned. Then we started to see some chips fall. Like day 3, we had Horford go to Boston. We had Dang go to the Lakers. We had Howard go to the Hawks. So some moves were starting to be made there. And then finally, July 4th, KD made the decision to go to the Warriors. So I think that there were some teams that obviously won, like the Warriors are by far the biggest winner, gave up nothing to get a whole heck of a lot. So that's an NBA Finals team that should have won the championship last year, should have been a 2-time champion, just got infinitely better. I think that's huge. They're obviously the odds-on favorite. Just found out that today that you'd have to bet $150 on the Warriors to win the title in order to win $100. So, I think it's not. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I mean, the Heat struggled, like I said, the first year. The Cavs struggled with LeBron last year a little bit at the beginning. So I could easily see them winning, and I could also easily see them faltering a little bit. But if KD does sign there long term, this team is going to be scary, scary, scary good for a long, long time. Then you also have Boston, who I think finally got their star, in quotes, of Al Horford. I mean, they've been trying so long to gain somebody of some notoriety. Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder are very good, but obviously not superstars. Al Horford is a annual All-Star game participant, so I think that's slightly like a superstar. He's going to make the team a lot better. Probably, I guess I'll give him a 2 seed in the East. I'll say they're right behind the Cavs. Nobody's better than the Cavs yet, but the Celtics are getting better. I like what Atlanta did with Dwight Howard, like we talked about earlier. Then there were some teams that missed the boat. I mean, Dallas once again struck out on every single free agent. They lost Chandler Parsons. They lost Zaza Pachulia, who they thought they had, who ended up turning around and signing with the Warriors for the minimum just because he wants to go win a ring. They signed Harrison Barnes to a max deal, which I think is a joke. Then they traded for Andrew Bogut, which I think is another joke. Basically, you just helped the best team in the league win a championship, in my opinion, by taking Andrew Bogut, because that allows them to sign Kevin Durant. So that's a little ridiculous. So Mark Cuban just once again cannot buy anyone into Dallas. He can't talk anyone into it. I don't know what the problem is. I think a lot of players would have liked to play there. It's a big city, pretty big market. Team has a lot of money. Owner's charismatic with a lot of money. So I really think it's a spot that people would like to go. But after DeAndre Jordan turned it down last year by signing back with the Clippers, even though he agreed to the Mavericks, pretty much they have struck out entirely on everyone they went after. Like Hassan Whiteside turned him down this year when people thought that might have been a done deal. So yeah, they got to change their pitch or something, but I feel bad for them. And then, like we talked about, the Bulls, they kind of missed the mark, but just by getting three more point guards, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think the Rockets really overpaid for Ryan Anderson. The Knicks got a little bit better with Joakim Noah and Derrick Rose, but they still got to get a shooter in there. They really have no shooting whatsoever, so they got to find a shooter. They got a lot older also, so they're kind of in win now mode, even though they're not really ready to win now. But yeah, it was the Warriors swept everybody away pretty much. I mean, they didn't really give anyone else a chance to win this free agency period, and that was kind of going to be the case with whoever got KD. There was words that KD, if he re-signed with the Thunder and gave the Thunder a long-term commitment, and Russell did the same thing, that Horford would look to go there, and then that would have been a super team we could have been talking about. Obviously not as good as the team that KD's on now, but there was talk about that earlier on in the week. So there's a lot of things going on. Free agency still theoretically hasn't started because players can't agree to deals until July 7th. So there's some wiggle room. I mean, we technically could see KD go back to the Thunder. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's not a guy that's going to back out like that, but he said it himself that he wants to go to the place that's best for him, that's at this point in his career, best to grow him into a man, and best to let him win a ring. And I think that's exactly what he's going to do here in Golden State, and I can't wait to watch. So that's going to wrap up our free agency recap. Next week we'll be back. Jonah will probably be back, and we will figure out something to talk about. It's a little bit of a quiet time. Maybe talk about the Euro Championship a little bit going on in soccer right now. And I know Jonah probably wants to talk a little bit about the Islanders because they made some big splashes in free agency. So we'll see what happens there. But we are going to, this is the point where we're going to start trying to talk about some bigger issues. So maybe we will talk 1 week about NCAA and how they treat student athletes. Then maybe we'll talk about concussions in NFL, and maybe we'll talk about salaries in sports, and maybe women in sports, and all that kind of stuff. So each week we'll try to talk about a new topic, and we haven't really decided what next week's going to be, so we'll surprise you with that. And we will see you back here next week. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.